Blasphemy. We're still in the section of blasphemy. And this is right here the end of the subsection of shirk under blasphemy. After we talked about the people who are truly pagans, although they believe in their claim in one God, but because they believe that God is some sort of a body, that this still counts as shirk, paganism. And those who believe in two gods, there are sects of them, factions of them, the Majus and the Thanawiya. And those who believe in three gods, those are the Christians, although they play with the words. Before getting out of the section of shirk, we want to talk about those who believe in many gods with the meaning of many individuals or creations that have, according to them, the attribute of God. Shirk is to worship someone other than Allah, or to give someone other than Allah the attributes of Allah, or to give Allah the attributes of someone else, which is also tashbih, God comparing. So some people, they gave the attribute of Allah, which is creating exclusively, exclusively for Allah, they gave it to the slaves of Allah. And creating here means bringing from non-existence into existence. Not the word creating, it's not the word that's most important here, it's the meaning that is most important here. And you should know that these people, they still try to play a word game with you, which is to say, no, it's not the same, because Allah creates without limbs, while we create by limbs. So it's not the same. Don't be confused by this, because they still intend the fundamental meaning that we say is exclusively for Allah, which is bringing, manifesting existence from nothingness, bringing volume forth from nothingness, volume having qualities, bringing that forth into being from nothingness. Or even just the quality only. Even just the quality only and not volume. Allah is the one who makes the volume come into existence from nothingness. And He is the one who makes the quality come into existence from nothingness. No one else. According to these people, they make the quality come into existence from nothingness, except that they do it with their limbs. This is still blasphemy. What quality are they claiming that they bring from nothingness? The motion, for example, the movement, or what is similar to that. And some of them have gone further. They went even further from here. This was a starting point for these people, Mu'tazila. Some of them, they say that they create whatever results from their actions too, not just their actions. So their base is to say they create their own actions. And some of them add to that, and whatever results from our actions. That's why Imam An-Nasafi said, like you learned in the summary of obligatory knowledge, if someone hit glass with a stone and it broke, then the acts of hitting and the state of being broken, the throwing of the stone, the collision of the stone into the glass, and the shattering of the glass are all created by Allah. That's why Imam An-Nasafi said this statement. For this corrupted belief of those people. So, the author says, a person would give partners to Allah when saying that the slave creates his own deeds. Yes. He would give partners to Allah when saying that the slave creates his own deeds. And we have documentation of that from the Salaf. This is one statement of many statements. This one in particular from Imam Malik, narrated by Al-Bayhaqi. that Malik was asked about someone letting his daughter marry a Qadari, a destiny denier. He responded by reciting the verse in Surah Al-Baqarah, وَلَعَبْدٌ مُؤْمِنٌ خَيْرٌ مِّن مُشْرِكٍ. An enslaved believer is better than a mushrik. So Malik is insinuating that the one you ask me about, this Qadari, he is a mushrik. In the explanation of the Sirat, the Shaykh conveys the statement of Al-Jilani from his book Al-Ghunyah. Yani, he logs that. وَهُمْ مَجُوسُ هَذِهِ الْأُمَّةِ. They are the Majus of this nation, the Qadariyah. جَعَلُوا لِلَّهِ شُرَكَاءَ. They made partners for Allah. وَنَسَبُوهُ إِلَى الْعَجْزِ. And they attributed him to weakness, or attributed weakness to him. But says attributed him to weakness. Nasabuhu. He he is the object of the verb. Nasabuhu. They attributed him. Ila al-ajz, to weakness. I'll leave it. So وَنَسَبُوهُ إِلَى الْعَجْزِ, and they attributed him to weakness. وأن يدخل في ملكه ما لا يدخل في قدرته وإرادته. And they claim that in his dominion, things that are not under his power and will. And they claim that in his dominion, there are things not under his power and will. Yes, that's shirk. Under whose power or will is it then? No one's? That's atheism. Subhanallah. Ta'ala Allahu an dhalika kathira. Allah is greatly exalted from that. Okay, so like last time we said, these ones who are mushriks are at the same time atheists, like here in this statement of Al-Jilani. وأن يدخل في ملكه ما لا يدخل في قدرته وإرادته. And that they believe that there are things in his dominion not under his power and will. That's atheism. تعالى الله عن ذلك كثيرا. Allah is greatly exalted from that. Abu al-Muzaffar says in the explanation of the hadith, Al-Qadariyah majus hadhihi al-ummah. The Qadariyah are the Majus of this nation, narrated by Abu Dawood and Al-Hakim. He, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, only compared them to the Majus, compared the Qadariyah to the Majus. That's the name the Prophet gave them, Al-Qadariyah. He only compared them to the Majus because the Majus ascribed some destining to Yazdan and some of it to Ahriman. Yazdan is the name of the god of good according to the Majus, and only good comes from him. And Ahriman is the name of the god of evil according to the Majus. And Abu Muzaffar said, which is the name of the devil. And so they believe in the devil god. And only evil comes from him. That's their religion. So that's their religion. That's not the religion of someone who claims to follow Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, if that's not the religion of someone who claims to follow the religion of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how is this a valid comparison? What is the meaning of the comparison? Yani, yes, even there's a comparison here in case you didn't know. Al-Qadariyah majusu hadhihi al-ummah. The Qadariyah are the Majus of this nation. That's a comparison. It means kal Majus, but without any tool of comparison, like or as or kaf or mithlu. And that's called in balagha tashbihun baligh. I'm not sure the best way to translate that, but it translates for me as no, I know how to translate it. That's metaphor. That's called metaphor. Metaphor means A comparison without using a tool of comparison, without saying like or as. So that's metaphor. Al-Qadariyya to Majusu hadhihi al-ummah. The Qadariyya are the Majus of this nation. So that's like if you say Zayd is a lion. It's a metaphor. Okay, so he compared them here. What's the meaning of the comparison if this is their religion and the one who is following Muhammad, at least in his claim, that's not his religion? Because the Majus ascribe some destining to someone and some destining to someone else. That's the meaning of the comparison there. Thus, they have confirmed a destining that opposes the destining of the Creator. And they said that it is possible that one of those destinies would take place over the other. That's the belief of the Qadariyah. Likewise, the Qadariyah have confirmed two destinings. But what he means by two here is a destining for Allah and a destining for other than Allah. But the second one, other than Allah, is many. And they have confirmed that it is possible for one of them, one of those two destinings to take place instead of the other. That's shirk. They claim that the destining of the Lord becomes impossible by virtue of the destining of the slave. They believe then in God having a rival. The slave rivals his Lord in their creed. Then they surpass the Majus. Yani, this is the similarity between them, and they have exceeded them. They went beyond them, for the Majus have only made in opposition to his destining one destiny. This statement means the Majus believe in two gods only. Not that when they say his destining, they mean they believe in Allah. They believe in two gods. And the Qadariyah have made in opposition to his destining the destining of every living thing, human or otherwise, including all vermin. Even thousands of mosquitoes that would fly out of a sink of rancid water. Okay, we have a footnote here. That's from At-Tafsir fi Din. This talk here. And Qadariyah. Why are they called Qadariyah? Because yani, they confirm the Qadar for themselves. That's what we mentioned last time. Meaning, how do you answer this question? Why are they called the Qadariyah? It's as if when you say Qadariyah that they confirm the Qadar and believe in the Qadar. So if they deny the Qadar, why would they be called Qadariyah? And Al-Ash'ari's answer to that, rahimahullah, is that because they confirm the Qadar for themselves. The meaning of them confirming the Qadar for themselves is that they believe that they create their own deeds and that there is no destiny. And so the people in this time, they have a statement that means that. They say, we make our own destinies. That's blasphemy. And that's shirk. And that's atheism. We're talking about the luzum here. The luzum. The luzum, which is the binding argument, where the argument leads to in the end. Where the statement or the claim leads to in the end. At the end, this talk is going to be shirk and ta'til. Paganism and atheism. That's very severe blasphemy. And the case of these people, is that they did not only exceed or surpass the Majus, they also surpassed the old philosophers. and they surpass the non-Islamic atheists. Islamic doesn't mean Muslim. Islamic means attributed to Islam. They surpass those ones. How they surpass those philosophers? By building on their work, adding to it. When the work of the Greeks was translated into Arabic, and these people got their hands on this falsafa, then they liked it and they built on it. They worked on it. They developed it. They developed it. That's how they branched off into even more fallacies. Dr. Kamal Hood told us that when some of the Muslims went to Greeks, so I don't have any names though, and wanted to translate their documents, they differed with each other. So some of them said, no, don't let them do it. And others, they said, let them do it. It will put poison into their creed. So they let them do it. I don't have any names, mashallah. That's how they surpassed those ones, because they took their work and built on it. And as for the atheists, the non-Islamic atheists, they surpassed them by being more advanced than them and being more intricate than them. Yeah, poison. They said it will put sum into their creed. And also, before we move on from here, yes. So Dr. Kamal Hout, he told us that when the Muslims wanted to translate the works of the Greeks, so they talked to them. And I'm saying, I don't have any names. I can't do anything but tell you this is what I heard from Dr. Kamal Hout. So the Muslims talked to them and they differed amongst themselves. Some of them didn't want to. They said, no, don't let them do it. But others, they said, no, let them do it. It will put poison into their creed. So they let them do it. Yeah, the Greeks differed, yeah. MashaAllah. I have no names, Habibi. All I can do is say, this is what I heard from Dr. Kamal Hout. From all that. So it means I don't know the history. I don't know what rulers, who was in charge, who was the delegation, who did they talk to, where did they go, what year was that? I don't have any information. But Yani, after the information got into the mainstream or got into the stream, Yani, after they got access to those books in Arabic, after they got access to that information in Arabic, Yani, then the poison was inserted. The Mu'tazila took it. And Ibn Taymiyyah liked it too. Yeah, as if they thought this is like, uh, yeah, academic service to knowledge and, like that, culture, etc. Now, also, the Qadariya, they have another name, which is Mu'tazila, Al-Mu'tazila. And there's a fine difference between these names because usually when we say either one, we mean the other. The Qadariya are the Mu'tazila. The Mu'tazila are the Qadariya. There's a fine difference, though, between how you can use these names, which is that Qadariya has broader application than just Mu'tazila. Qadari, any person who believes that he creates his own deeds is a Qadari, even if he's a Christian or a Jew or an atheist or whatever. So in that way, Qadari is different from Mu'tazili. And as for Mu'tazila, also, they are the people who believe in the limbo status, al-manzilatu bayn al-manzilatayn. It's possible that there were Qadariyah before the emergence of this conviction of the limbo status, al-manzilatu bayn al-manzilatayn, the status of neither being a believer nor a kafir according to them. This is the thing that got them the name Mu'tazila. For this, they are the Mu'tazila. And it's possible that there were Qadariyah before this emerged. This came from Wasil ibn Atta. This limbo status came from Wasil ibn Atta. There were Qadariyah before him. Then all of the Qadariyah after him also adopted the creed of the limbo status. Now, also, I was telling you last time that these ones, we put them right here in this section on shirk, and I've been saying they're also atheists. And amongst their atheism, and we have the atheism chapter coming right now, amongst their atheism is denying the attributes of Allah, denying destiny. It is atheism. Denying destiny is atheism. And denying the attributes of Allah, the ma'ani in particular, they are denying. They deny sifatul ma'ani. This is atheism. And they deny that Allah can be seen. That's atheism. No. Okay. وَسُبْحَانَ wa وَبِحَمْدِهِ. And then, right, to get out of the section on shirk, we have something. One might commit shirk while making an oath, another, or a vow, or a pledge, like to make the oath or vow for a wali, to make it for the wali for the sake of the wali. This means that the person intends by his oath to gain a higher status from that wali instead of gaining it from Allah. And it's as if this is what the Wahhabi thinks that a Muslim does when he makes tawassul. And this is not tawassul. Tawassul is not shirk. It's not close to shirk. It's not a fine line between shirk and tawassul. It's a whole nother valley. They are different. This means that this person believes that this saint fulfills the needs and removes the hardships. This is different from fulfilling an oath and granting the reward to the soul of that wali, seeking a higher status from Allah, and hoping that Allah would fulfill the needs and lift the hardships. Such a deed is permissible. And it's also different from believing that Allah grants relief by the blessing of the wali or by the blessing of the Prophet. وَسُبْحَانَ اللَّهِ وَبِحَمْدِهِ. Atheism. The Shaykh said that ta'til, which is to deny the existence or attributes of Allah, is the worst type of blasphemy. Ta'til, atheism, it is the brother of the shirk. They're related. In order for a person to achieve ta'til, he would have to compare the creator to the creation and then deny him. He will make a comparison between Allah and the creation. That's shirk right there. And then he will deny the existence of Allah. That's the atheism. To deny the existence or the attributes of Allah. Here, this is what makes Mu'tazila atheist, Mu'tazili atheist, or if you would allow, an Islamic atheist. It's what makes him more advanced than non-Islamic atheists. It's non-Islamic atheists who denies the existence of Allah. These Islamic ones, they deny the attributes of Allah. And this leads to atheism. Its clear implication is atheism, but they are double talkers. These ones, the non-Islamic ones, they're not double talkers. They're just straightforward atheists. These ones are not straightforward atheists. They are atheists attempting to argue for atheism and leave you thinking that they believe that God exists. Whoever denies an attribute that is known by necessity, such as his being knowledgeable or alive or hearing or seeing or powerful, blasphemes. Yani, their case is like the case of the Wahhabis, just the reverse. What's the case of the Wahhabi? He's a pagan. He believes God is like the creation, but he's going to argue with you so that he would make you, yani, convince you that he does not liken Allah to the creations. He wants to make his paganism appear to be not paganism. Whoever denies an attribute that is known by necessity, such as his being alive, such as his being knowledgeable, alive, hearing, seeing, or powerful, blasphemes, and is not excused by ignorance. Some scholars said that the one who denies these attributes has denied the oneness of Allah. Yes. And whoever denies the oneness blasphemes. That's true. Denying one of those attributes is atheism. Just like likening one of his attributes is paganism. You know this statement, inshallah, from the summary of obligatory knowledge. Whoever denies an attribute that is known by necessity, such as his being knowledgeable, alive, hearing, seeing, or powerful, blasphemes. And I told you that this section of blasphemy in the outstanding reference contains all examples that are in the apostasy section of the summary of obligatory knowledge, and all examples that are in the blasphemy section of As-Siratul Mustaqim. They're just weaved in there. So you will identify them if you know those books, inshallah. And then that is coated with what's in Qawa'id Muhimmah, this blasphemy section here. So, such as his being knowledgeable, alive, hearing, seeing, or powerful, whoever denies these attributes that are known by necessity, he blasphemes. Why does he blaspheme here? He blasphemes for going against the definitive intellectual proof. Yeah, for going against the definitive intellectual proof. That's why he's not excused by ignorance here. What if someone denied the obligation of the 5 prayers, but he was a new Muslim who had not heard about it? Then we're not going to deem him as a kafir. He will be excused by his ignorance and we will teach him. That does not have definitive intellectual evidence. This one, though, does have definitive intellectual evidence, so denying it is blasphemy without excuse, even if you were a new Muslim who never heard about it. Yunus ibn Abdil A'la narrated from Ash-Shafi'i that Ash-Shafi'i said, Allah has names and attributes that no one is allowed to deny. That's atheism. And whoever opposes after the evidence has been confirmed blasphemes. However, before the confirmation of the evidence, he is excused. This is a statement of Ash-Shafi'i. However, before the confirmation of the evidence, he is excused because of ignorance. So maybe you see where we're going here. Because the knowledge of these attributes is not reached through the intellect or thinking. What? Is that exactly contradicting what I just told you? Let me keep reading here. And so we confirm these attributes and deny any resemblance for him, just as he denied any resemblance for himself and said, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. Nothing whatsoever resembles him. So now we're going to see the explanation of this statement. What he meant is clarified by knowing. I didn't understand. Yeah, we're going to explain now, inshallah ta'ala. Hmm. What he meant is clarified by knowing that the attributes of Allah are of two categories. Yani, the one who used this statement of Ash-Shafi'i to say the opposite of what I told you before is because he doesn't know that the attributes of Allah are of two categories. Those which are confirmed and known by the intellect, such as the 13 attributes, and those which are not. So when I told you a person's going to blaspheme because he has definitive intellectual evidence, we're talking about the 13 attributes. When Ash-Shafi'i was talking about a person not blaspheming before the evidence is confirmed for him, he denied the attribute and didn't blaspheme before the evidence was confirmed for him. He's talking about those attributes that are not confirmed by intellectual evidence. Whoever denies any of the first category blasphemes without detail. Yani, he is definitely, certainly a kafir. No detail, new Muslim, or what? And for the second category, so that's going to be like his attribute of yad and ayn and wajh and istiwa. Whoever denies any of them does not blaspheme before the verification of the evidence against him. Meaning, if he were to be, for example, skeptical when he heard that Allah has an attribute called yad, even in Arabic, or ayn, or wajh, he heard the words and he was skeptical, for example, if not straight up denying. What? Because he never heard before. Then he will not be a kafir before the evidence for these attributes is confirmed for him. And then he still denies. If the evidence is confirmed for him and then he submits, then he is a believer. He said, the author says here, whoever denies any of the first category blasphemes without detail, and for the second category, whoever denies any of them does not blaspheme before the verification of the evidence against him. Because knowing about them is by hearing about them and their proofs, by hearing, not by thinking. You, no matter how hard you think, you will never think on your own that Allah has an attribute called yad, or ayn, or wajh. Though you will come to realize that he has knowledge and power and sight and hearing. And here, let's mention a benefit. Some people don't understand the difference between these two categories in terms of saying that some of them, we don't take them literally. Some people say, wait, why do you have a problem with yad and ayn and wajh in a literal sense? And you say knowledge and power and will and hearing and sight and speech. Why do you say that and you don't say this? The answer is because those are concrete nouns, those ones that you want to translate literally. Concrete nouns. Their literal meanings are objects. Their literal meanings have volume. As for knowledge, power, will, sight, hearing, and speech, we don't need a ta'wil. They don't mean object. They don't mean something confined in space or place or time. They are meanings. They are abstract in terms of being nouns. Abstract nouns. Ma'ani, they are ma'ani, not concrete. So that's why we don't have to think of an alternative translation for them. When you say Allah has knowledge, it doesn't mean he's like the creation. Okay, let's keep moving here. So, Ash-Shafi'i did not mean the 13 attributes because they are known by the mind and by hearing them. By the mind and by hearing them. Let's say, as well as. They are known by the mind as well as by hearing them, those 13 attributes. But the other attributes, they are known by hearing them only, not by mind. The 13 are known by mind and by hearing. Others are known by hearing only, not by mind. So they are knowable even if there were no text as a reference for them. That's how a kafir is going to know that God exists in his own language, for example, without hearing from Muslims. And let's say he's not saying shirk. What he's going to say, God exists and he sees me, he knows me, he hears everything. So none of this means body. And he doesn't need a text to arrive at this. Or he would say, he is alive, he must be alive. So Ash-Shafi'i did not mean the 13 attributes because they are known by the mind as well as by hearing them. Ash-Shafi'i is talking about what's not known but by hearing them, even if there were no text as a reference for them, because they are the conditions for godhood. Yani, what's the attribute of God going to be if it's not going to be these attributes? So those are known by the mind. Ibn al-Jawzi said, whoever denies the power of Allah is a blasphemer by agreement. Footnote, if this is known, then know that the invalidity of claiming that Ash-Shafi'i denied the blasphemy of those who are ignorant about the attributes of Allah in a way that includes ignorance of his power over everything and ignorance of his knowledge about everything and the rest of the 13 attributes, yani, that's invalid. That's clear anyway. Without the footnotes, clear. If it were said, what is the ruling for the Mu'tazila saying? Allah hears by himself, sees by himself, knows by himself. The answer is that it is blasphemy because it is a denial of his attributes. And whoever says it while understanding it for what it truly is, which is the denial of the attribute itself, then he blasphemes. And this is a person who is making fun of you in your face. He says, Allah, he sees by himself. If you don't know what he's saying, you'd say, why they have a problem with you? You'd say, those guys are extremists or something. We say Allah hears. He hears by himself. He sees by himself. So someone who doesn't know, he might say, well, yeah, I don't know why. You say that, but we don't say that though. You say he hears by hearing, and he sees by seeing, and by sight. He hears by a hearing, and he sees by a sight, and he speaks by a speech, and he has power by, and he is powerful by a power, and he is a willer by will, and he is a speaker by speech, and he is a knower by knowledge. And these are the attributes of his self. And he is everlasting by everlastingness. And these are the attributes of his self. And these attributes, they have a meaning. Each one of them has a meaning that is more than what is understood by a mere self. You say knowledge of Allah. You understand something more than the mere self of God. When you say power of Allah, you understand something more than the mere self of God. So if someone says he's a seer by himself, a hearer by himself, knower by himself, what he's saying is he's a hearer not by hearing, he's a seer not by seeing, he's a knower not by knowing. That's what he's saying. And if he could take you out of your religion, he'll do so. May Allah protect us from the human devils and the genie devils. The last part, they say, when they say Allah hears by himself and sees by himself and knows by himself, they are saying, in other words, he hears not by hearing, he sees not by sight, he knows not by knowledge. This is what they are saying. This is atheism. Let me just finish this paragraph here, then you can ask me whatever you want, inshallah. So he says here, that's what the question is. If it were said, what is the ruling for the Mu'tazila saying Allah hears by himself, sees by himself, knows by himself? The answer is that This is blasphemy. That's the ruling. We deem them as kuffar for this statement because it is a denial of his attributes and reality, because it means hears not by hearing, sees not by sight, knows not by knowing. And whoever says it while understanding it for what it truly is, oh, that's what you're asking me. Whoever says it while understanding it for what it truly is, yani, he like what I'm saying to you. He knows what it really means and he's saying it. He says Allah hears by himself. He knows what he's saying. He's saying, I don't believe Allah has an attribute called hearing. But he's not going to say that. He's going to say Allah hears by himself. So whoever says it while understanding it for what it truly is, as opposed to some person who doesn't know what that really means. He thinks it's okay statement, maybe for lack of mastery of the science of Aqidah. So he thinks when the person says Allah hears by himself that he's saying Allah hears. That's all he thinks he's saying. He thinks he's not saying something extra. He's saying Allah hears, for example. So if he were to repeat the statement, not understanding it for what it truly is, then we're not going to deem him as a kafir. Like if he thinks it means Allah hears, and that's all he thinks it really means. But he says, Allah hears by himself, and he thinks it means Allah hears, then we're not going to deem him as a kafir because of his lack of understanding what that statement is really for. So whoever says it while understanding it for what it truly is, which is the denial of the attribute itself, then he blasphemes. As do all who understand the statement and doubt in its blasphemy. They would blaspheme too for not deeming it as, for not being sure that it's blasphemy. Or they do not judge him accordingly. Yes. For the Mu'tazili to say that he is hearing by himself, not an attribute, for example, is exactly a denial of him being hearing. Yeah, when he says he's hearing by himself, what he's really saying is he does not hear. That's what he's really saying. It's the real meaning of his statement. That if he's really committed to this is what he believes. That's why I said they are more advanced than a non-Islamic atheist. I never saw a non-Islamic atheist talk like this. For the Mu'tazili to say that he is hearing by himself, not by an attribute, for example, is actually a denial of him hearing, seeing, being knowledgeable, or powerful. It is only to mislead the people that they say he hears by himself, not by hearing. Just like when the Wahhabi says he's a body not like other bodies. It is self-contradictory. It is like for one to say that he is one without being one and knowledgeable without being knowledgeable. وَسُبْحَانَ wa bihamdih. I feel like we don't need this footnote here. It's clear in the text. So, inshallah, next stop, belying the religion. Takdeeb. Any question?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaykum assalam wa rahmatullah.
So I'm confused with how do I understand then when we say Allah hears with having without needing an ear, Allah can see without needing an eye.
Yeah, that's
Isn't
true.
that correlates with what you just said?
This is
Like,
correct.
how is it different from the person saying Allah sees by himself, Allah hears by
But when he
himself?
says
What is
Allah
the
sees by
difference like
himself,
between?
when he says Allah sees by himself, he's saying Allah sees not by sight. Not by sight. He's not saying Allah sees without eyes. He's saying Allah sees not by sight. That means Allah does not see.
Yeah. So don't we say? So don't we also say Allah doesn't need an eye? Allah sees
Yeah,
without needing an
yeah. We don't
eye.
say, but we don't say he sees
So
not
here,
by sight though.
okay. So it means that Allah's sight, He have a sight, but it's different from His creation,
Yep, a
basically.
sight without eyes. Yes, they are saying he does not have sight. They're saying he sees without sight. That's what they're saying. They say he hears without hearing. Yani, let me say
Namutala,
closer.
right?
Let me
These are
say
the
closer to how they.
groups.
I'm sorry. Hold on one sec. Let me say it closer to how they would say it in Arabic, but in English, they would say he's a seer, not by sight. He's a hearer, not by hearing. He's a knower, not by knowledge. That's what they say. We don't say that. We say he sees. He's a seer, not by eyes. That's what we say. Not that we say not by sight. Go ahead. What were you saying?
Okay. I think I forgot.
Okay.
That's
Salam
okay.
alaikum,
When
Sheikh.
I remember,
Wa
I'll
alaikum
ask.
salam wa rahmatullah. Okay, inshallah.
Sheikh, there's this footnote you just deleted. Can you go over it again?
Okay.
Regarding the Shafi'i and the invalidity of when we related Ibn al-Jawzi's narration or quote to his to what he meant, to what Imam Shafi'i meant.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
أيوة.
It says if this is
You,
known, then know that if this is known,
mm,
then known, yeah,
mm,
then also known is the
mm.
invalidity of claiming that Ash-Shafi'i denied the blasphemy of those who are ignorant about the attributes of Allah in a way that includes ignorance of His power over everything, His knowledge about everything, and the rest of the 13 attributes.
Known as the invalidity of claim that Shafi'i denied the blasphemy of those who are ignorant about it.
And this is also known.
Um,
If this is known, what?
mm,
What does this footnote go to?
I think it's the
Whoever
same.
denies the power of Allah is a blasphemer by agreement. But not just this all this talk, not just Ibn al-Jawzi's statement.
Mm.
Ash-Shafi'i did not mean the 13 attributes because they are known by the mind as well as by hearing them, even if there were no text as a reference for them, because they are the conditions for godhood. Ibn al-Jawzi said, whoever denies the power of Allah is a blasphemer by agreement. So footnote, if this is known, yani the whole case, not just Ibn al-Jawzi's statement.
Okay. Subhanallah. I see. Mm.
Then also known, so barakallahu feek, we'll keep the footnotes inshallah. Then also known is the invalidity of claiming that Ash-Shafi'i denied the blasphemy of those who are ignorant about the attributes of Allah in a way that includes ignorance of His power over everything and His knowledge about everything and the rest of the 13 attributes.
Sheikhi, I just feel, I'm not sure if I'm right, but as if there's something missing here,
In the
in
footnote?
the whole assumption. I mean, the conclusion, to be exact. Like if you're saying, because in the beginning they just started with explaining what Imam Shafi'i meant. Okay, then I think what's the reason they said so is Ibn al-Jawzi's, the turning point was Ibn al-Jawzi's quote. Yani, how did they deduce all of it, this, from just
We said here the
yani,
13 attributes.
did not mean the 13. He started with concluding here. This is what I'm not sure if you're following with me here. So pardon my broken English,
Go
but
ahead.
you know.
Go ahead. Make it clear for me, please.
Yeah. No. I'm just saying that here it's just that he's starting with the conclusion of what Shafi'i meant, and how, if I was asked, if a Wahhabi was to say, for example, where did you come up with all of this? How did you why are you putting words in Shafi'i's mouth, for example? Why are you deducing Shafi'i didn't say so? Why
Okay.
are
Well,
you adding?
it says
This is what
here
I'm
what he meant is clarified. It doesn't say what he said, it says what he meant. What he meant
clear.
by his
Mm,
statement is we said what he said, we didn't pervert his statement. And then what he
mm,
meant by what he said is
mm.
clarified by knowing something. There's something you need to know, then you're gonna understand what he meant. So what he meant is clarified by knowing a fact that there's two categories for the attributes. If Wahhabi
mm,
say, where you get that from? I'm going to say to him, this is what the
mm.
Ash'aris and the Maturidis say.
Ash'aris and Maturidis. Okay. The scholars. This is what the scholars
Yeah.
deduced from his. This is what I
Not
wanted
they
to.
deduce from Shafi'i's statement. This is what they say about the attributes.
Uh,
There are attributes that are known by the mind and attributes that are not known by the mind.
mm.
A
So you know
Shafi'i
what?
is
Mm, mm, mm,
a
mm.
Shafi'i is saying that denying. He has a statement that looks like he's saying denying the attributes is not blasphemy before you get the proof for it.
Yes, yes. This is what it apparently
Yeah, but we are
means.
saying that, but our conviction really, and what we Ahlul Sunnah know to be true, is that there's a detail here. Here's a statement
Mm,
from the Shafi'i, but what is verified for sure is that there's a detail here. And we do not believe that a Shafi'i doesn't know that detail. So what he's saying is like what we say. And so we're explaining to you. He said something, and the way to not uh, take the wrong understanding from what he said is to know that there are some attributes that are known by the mind and some attributes that are not known by the mind. The ones that are not known by the mind, that's the ones that Ash-Shafi'i is mentioning, even if that doesn't appear for you very clearly, but that's why you learn from teachers and you don't learn from reading. Needs to
yeah,
be
yeah.
clarified. That's what I would say to
Mm, okay. هو سيدي, may I say that in Arabic because just to cut the long story short. أنا يعني ما كنت أريد قوله أنه لما ثبت الإجماع الذي نقله ابن الجوزي وهو تأكيد لما أجمع عليه الأشاعرة والماتريدية، فاستنتجنا وخلصنا إلى أن الشافعي أراد بكلامه لأن الشافعي لا
لا لا
يكذب
لا ليس
الإجماع.
هكذا نقول. We're not saying that we deduced it from Shafi'i's talk. We're saying it's already
No, no,
there.
no.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. it's already there. It's
Yeah,
not.
we believe
أنا قصدي يعني لما ثبت الإجماع.
there's a statement from Ash-Shafi'i. We need to make it comply with what is already known to be correct.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying too. يعني بما أن الإجماع ثبت في أن الصفات هذه من أنكر واحدة منها أو شك فيها أو توقف فهو كافر. لما ثبت هذا إجماعا علمنا أن مراد الشافعي بقوله كذا وكذا لم يرد الصفات 13 وما كان.
Yeah, هكذا.
هكذا هذا ما أردته.
هذا هو.
Because before I used to explain it to people as if يعني this is what I understood from the mashayikh, that Shafi'i said so and so explicitly, which is not the case. I just knew that from you now. You know what I mean?
نعم.
I used to explain it as is, but Shafi'i didn't say so.
Yeah, هكذا.
نعم بارك الله فيك.
آمين وفيك. طيب, let's stop here. Bismillah.
Sorry. So what I was saying earlier is that the statements, the blasphemous statements that's about the attributes of Allah is from Mu'tazila group.
Yes.
They are the one that they say
Yep.
Allah see without
Yes.
see Allah sees by himself. They are the one.
Yes. Yes. Those are Mu'tazila.
Subhanallah. How do they back up their claim?
They said because if he has sight, then his sight would be eternal. They said if he had attributes, then his attributes would be eternal. That's true. They said, but if they were eternal, then there would be more than one eternal one. That's false. They said, therefore, he does not have attributes because he's one, absolutely one in eternity. So they said, then we don't say he has eternal sight, eternal hearing, eternal power, eternal will. They said, we just say he is an eternal self, and he sees by himself, and he hears by himself, and he knows by himself. We say to them,
okay, but how? What is their proof? What are they backing this?
I don't know any ayah that they would use for it. I don't know any ayah they would use for that, or any hadith. And that's their case in a lot of times. This is a good question then, since you brought me here. This is their case. This in a lot of times, which is they don't have a proof. What they have a fallacy, shubha. They have an argument they are making. And that's how a lot of people are too. They don't really have a proof. They just have some idea and they're going to argue their idea. They don't have a proof.
Yeah. Mhm.
There's something narrated by the Mu'tazila. They had long debate between themselves. Just themselves, between the Mu'tazila. And they're all making takfir on each other. And this, it's like they had a conference or summit. And they were talking about some topics about the attributes of Allah, and they were committing kufr, and they were all deeming each other as kuffar. And the whole time, they never referred to a single ayah or a single hadith.
Subhanallah. And they talk about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yeah, mashallah.
Sheikh, you just mentioned what I want if you allow me.
Yes.
You just mentioned that they followed in the footsteps of the philosophers, the old ones, but moreover they surpassed them.
Yeah.
So this is where they got all this misconceptions from.
Yeah, that's where
Because
they got the confusions and the fallacies. Yes.
what you just mentioned, تعدد, they thought that this would lead to تعدد ذوات القدماء.
Yes.
What you just, I'm not sure how to translate that, but this is what they thought because they relied on their own, mind skills.
Yes.
What is it called?
They did rely on their own minds, but their minds are corrupted.
Yeah. So they might have got it from al-ayah huwa al-awwal or something. So they would think that if we said so, it would lead to saying Allah has counterparts or in eternity.
Yeah, something like that, for example. I wouldn't be surprised if someone produced ayah like that.
Mm-hmm. Barakallahu feek.
I mean, Wafiq. The people of fallacy is going to produce something. MashaAllah. Or sometimes they might not, though. Still, sometimes they won't. They don't have anything. You're supposed to submit to their idea. Like, if you argue with him the fact that it's just his idea, he will think you're making a stupid argument. Subhanallah. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Wa subhanallahi wa bihamdih.